Here's a psychology fact you're not ready for. People who don't care about influencers aren't out of touch. They've simply stopped forming emotional bonds with people who don't know they exist. You know that feeling when someone mentions a popular influencer by name, and everyone around you nods like they know them personally, and you feel nothing. Not jealousy, not curiosity, just a quiet indifference that you can't quite explain. It's not that you're judging people who follow them. It's that the whole dynamic feels distant to you, like watching a performance you never bought a ticket for. Most people assume this means you're out of step with culture or that you think you're above it, but that's not what's happening. There's something deeper going on here. Let's talk about the psychology of people who don't care about influencers and the traits that define them. 1. They don't form parasocial bonds. Psychologists study what's called parasocial relationships, one-sided bonds where one person feels connected to someone who doesn't know they exist. For many people, these relationships feel real. They provide comfort, entertainment, even a sense of friendship. But for others, that wiring doesn't activate. Not because they're cold, because their brain doesn't form emotional attachments to people they've never met. It's not a choice. It's just how their attachment system works. 2. They reserve emotional energy for real relationships. When you watch someone online, you might enjoy their content. You might find it interesting, but you don't feel invested in their life. You don't care what they ate for breakfast. You don't feel sad when they're sad. Not because you're heartless, because your emotional energy is reserved for people who actually exist in your world. 3. They see performance for what it is. People who don't care about influencers often have a sharp eye for performance. They notice the curation. They see the scripted moments, the planned vulnerability, the carefully crafted relatability. And instead of feeling drawn in, they feel distance. Not because they're cynical, because they can't unsee the stage. 4. They don't need external validation through others. For many people, following influencers is about more than entertainment. It's about feeling part of something, a community, a lifestyle, a shared identity. But people who don't care about influencers often get their sense of identity elsewhere, from their work, from their hobbies, from real relationships. They don't need to belong to a fan base to feel like they belong. 5. They prefer connection over exposure. This is the quieter truth. People who don't care about influencers aren't against connection. They just prefer it to be mutual. They want to be known, not just to know about someone. The one-sided nature of influencer culture doesn't satisfy them. It leaves them feeling untouched. Here's what this isn't. It's not about being too cool for influencers. It's not about judging people who follow them. It's simply about having a different relationship with attention, performance, and emotional energy. Neither is better. Neither is broken. They're just different ways of being in the world. Here's the harder truth, though. People who don't care about influencers sometimes feel alienated from the people around them. They sit through conversations about people they've never heard of, and they feel a quiet sense of distance. Not because they want to, because they can't pretend to care about something that doesn't register for them. If this feels familiar, you're not alone, and you're not out of touch. You're just someone who reserves your emotional energy for people who can hold it in return. That's not coldness, that's discernment. If this quiet recognition stayed with you, there's another layer worth understanding. Something about why certain kinds of public figures feel like strangers to you, while others, like authors or artists, feel deeply familiar. That distinction might tell you more about how your mind chooses who to trust. That's the mechanism. Now you know who